We went in to fight because it was our country too. See, we knew we had problems, but we didn't want Hitler coming over here and doing what he would do, say, with the Japanese. It's still our country, see. So then I went to the Army and took their exam, and I went there, I said, let's get rid of this race problem. I went to the Army and said, I want to go to Tuskegee, see. And, oh yeah, you can go there. So I took the exam and passed it, and they swore me in as a private in the reserve. And my picture appeared in the middle of the Philadelphia Tribune, a black newspaper in Philadelphia. Got the highest score of 17-year-olds on that exam. I turned 18, got orders to report the 13th of July, 43. Went to Keyswell, and that's the first chance. I grew up in Philadelphia. We knew about racial segregation and problems, but we didn't run into it. But the three of us we were supposed to go to Tuskegee for flying, but we had to go to Keystone Field for basic training, 6 weeks of basic training. We got on and I was surprised they gave us Pullman tickets to go down there. There were no airplanes flying then. People went by train in those days. So we got Pullman to Cincinnati, and it was just the first time I sat in the dining car ordering off a menu and watching the scenery go by. You know, that was great. You know? And we got off at Biloxi, Mississippi. And when we went to eat, that was the big thing. We walked into the dining car, and they told us to sit behind that curtain. You had a curtain across the dining car, and the curtain was weighted so that you have to push it to get through, but it would always close, so the whites couldn't see the blacks sitting in the car. And that was our introduction to racial segregation. Then we got to Biloxi, and it got much, much worse. Because on the base, we were entirely separated, see. We had the orderly room, a barracks, and we had a separate dining hall for us, see, down there. See. And that's the way the service was then. And, well, we moved December 43 to become cadets, and pre-flight, basic, pre-flight, primary, basic, and advanced, and graduated in September 44 as a lieutenant, some flight officers, but you received your wings. There were a lot of people against the Tuskegee Airmen. In fact, the 99th went over in the spring of 43. They landed at Casablanca, yeah, and worked with our forces in North Africa, then up through Sicily into Italy. But they had problems over there. The first group, the 33rd Fighter Group, they weren't part of it, they were attached to it, say. First 33rd Fighter Group had 3 squadrons, but the 99th went over the Black Squadron by itself, and they attached it to the 33rd. So they would provide them with support and give the briefings for them and all of that. But the commander didn't like having them there, and he recommended that they not be in combat. But one thing about the 99th, they had been over there for many months. They started in combat in June of 43, and by the latter part of the year, they'd only shot down 1 airplane. See? And one reason for that, they were doing ground support, and the German airplanes weren't down there that much. See? It ended up back in Washington, where Colonel Davis came back here and he testified about the role over there. And General Marshall, the Chief of Staff of the Army, decided they need more time. But in the spring of 44, the head of 15th Air Force, B-17s, B-24s, was losing too many airplanes and decided he needed more fighter groups. So one of the groups he got was the 32nd. And he impressed upon Colonel Davis, he didn't want to lose as many airplanes. And so Colonel Davis took that to heart and made sure that we stayed with the bombers And so they started in June of 44, flying escort from Italy, escorting B-17s and B-24s up over Germany. Our fighters would stay with the bombers. And so we shot down 100 and some planes, German planes, 112, 100, something like that. But we lost few bombers, not too many. At one time they said they never lost a bomber. We did lose bombers, about 26, 27, something like that. But that was at least half as much as the closest group to us. Colonel Davis told if the German fighters come in and attack, and you drive them off, if they leave, you let them go. Come back to the bombers. Most of the white groups, their pilots would stay after the fighter, shoot him down someplace over there, but then they lost the bombers. Where the bombers are hundreds of miles away, say, and they can't get back, and quite often that reduced the number of planes escorting the bombers, where Germans had more fighters, then they could attack the group and were more effective, see. Plus it provided more fighters, because quite often some planes that couldn't keep up with the group because they lose an engine or a couple of engines, whatnot. And quite often, if he had enough airplanes, you detach a couple to fly with him. He's flying by himself. So you stick with him to make sure he's safe, see. And that was a comforting thought for a lot of the bombers, see. We would stick with stragglers. And a lot of the bomber crews loved that. The fact that we would stay with them. See. Yeah, we inspired people back there because people talked about it, see. Because most everybody, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Philadelphia Tribune, the Independent, they had a large circulation in those cities, say, and people read them, say, because the white newspapers didn't carry much in the way of blacks, so blacks were used to those newspapers, say, and they got them. The Pittsburgh Courier was a national paper; it was all over the place, say. And I remember I used to deliver papers when I was young, and I remember those papers, and I used to read about the people at Tuskegee. A lot of the bomber groups, some of them really wanted us to fly with them, say. And I'll say this, that the Air Force, it became a new service. A lot of the officers in the Air Force moved out and moved up. They became a higher level. And a number of those people at high level had actually been to 15th Air Force, and they knew about the 332nd thing. And so we had people up there who knew about them. And Lieutenant General, he quietly initiated a study about racial integration. Air Force in 48 and 47 became a new service. 7 months later, they announced they're going to integrate. Well, that was something new, you know, and especially in the South. And then another one that happened, they had flown missions and we escorted them. And when he found out the red tails were black, but then as his last moments, a wish of a lifetime, he wished to see a Tuskegee Airman and say thanks. So that happened several times.
And as a young cadet, freshman at Tuskegee at 16, I was the guy who raised my hand to ask him a question when he spoke to our class. And I asked the question, and he says, "Young man, your performance is your measure of merit. It is your reputation. It is how people in the Air Force will know you throughout your career. Your performance is what's important."